Representative James Comer from the House Oversight Committee is now demanding that the Department of Treasury hand over the SARs, the suspicious activity reports that allegedly implicate Hunter Biden in a lot of the financial transactions with foreign entities, as many say that Hunter was the bagman for Joe in his quid pro quo deals with foreign agents. We're going to go through the letter that James Comer, this representative, sent over to the Department of Treasury. Her name is Janet Yellen. And then we've got some reaction on exactly how corrupted or how compromised the Biden administration is. You remember John Ratcliffe, the former director of national intelligence, who tells us that if these SARs are true, these suspicious activity reports are true, and different people know about them, that gives them leverage over the Biden White House. And we already know that a lot of this money came from CEFC. There were text messages from Hunter that went over to a business executive. The next day, they woke up with a $100,000 business transaction back into Hunter's bank account. And Joe Biden lovingly talks about China very regularly. One of his favorite places, him and President Xi Jinping, they do each other's nails when they're colluding to bankrupt America. So before we read the letter that went over from the Oversight Committee to Janet Yellen, let's see what James Comer had to say about it as he explains this and what it means.
Instead of a director to give retribution.
Find anything. Well, here's what we found when we gained access to the suspicious activity reports on the Bidens. We found that the president did have transactions that went to his family members while he was vice president. That was something the media said never happened. They always said the wire transfers happened after he left office. We proved that they happened while he was vice president, and we proved that 9 Biden family members were a part of the influence peddling team, not just the president's son and his
brother. They were funneling this money through LLCs.
They were funneling it through LLCs. We knew about several LLCs, but when we got access to Treasury, we found more LLCs. So we found more shell accounts, more bank accounts, and more Bidens who were involved in the influence peddling scheme. Now, today, we've requested more information. We're going to request more suspicious activity reports relating to Burisma.
That letter's coming up.
Now, I read today that Burisma money was funneled to China and then returned to the Bidens in the form of, quote, loans. Is that
loans that Hunter would not have to pay back? So they were loans. They were not income, so he didn't have to report the income. But they were loans to foreign entities that they would just write off. You know, it's like, what are they going to do? They're going to come collect it from him? No. They're going to ding his credit for illegal bribery loans or something? No. So they're loans. He just doesn't document them, pay taxes on them, and the loans go away. Very nice little scam.
To avoid taxes? Is that a forgivable loan with no interest, like we had heard might have happened with $5 million? Do we know anything about that?
All we know is in the Form 1020, the FBI Form 1020, the
1020 or 1023?
1023.
Okay.
The oligarch bragged that investigators, it would take 10 years to find all the different transactions that they used to launder the money to the Bidens. So we think they used through loans. We think they transferred through other countries. We think they transferred through stocks. We requested stock accounts in addition to bank accounts. So we're going through this, but we also have information that would...
What about FTX and crypto?
Lead us to believe there's information in suspicious activity reports where banks realize what was going on. They are pretty quick to catch money laundering. And that's what all the banks did in the previous suspicious activity reports. They detected money laundering.
But these are LLCs that were not legitimate businesses.
Right.
They were there to receive money and redistribute money.
Absolutely.
Fair statement?
And when you set up
they were fake companies like Rosemont, Bohem's, Harvest, and all the different names were just like permutations, like Rosemont Seneca 1. Rosemont Seneca 2. Like, what are you creating all these LLCs for? To create and open bank accounts, to move money around. That's basically it. And to put different stuff on letterhead, get business addresses, and then do transactions. You don't need them for anything else. And if you layer them all on top of one another, then you've got that money goes to this money, to that bank in that country, to another company in that country that's just formed there that maybe the IRS doesn't know about. So we're seeing stuff that we have eyes on. Think about all of the other stuff that was taking place in all of the other foreign countries. It's like impossible to grab all of that.
A bunch of shell companies for the sole purpose of laundering money. That's called racketeering. The banks knew exactly what the Bidens were doing. That's why they filed so many suspicious activity reports against the Bidens. What we're requesting now are suspicious activity reports relating to anyone that was involved in Burisma, because we believe this will help us track the $10 million that the oligarch said he sent to both Joe Biden and Hunter Biden.
So you're the chairman of the very powerful and important House Government Reform Oversight Committee. Now, what do you make of of these WhatsApp messages. The Bidens are the best I know at doing exactly what the chairman wants from this partnership. Now, that's a message from Hunter to this Chinese energy company chairman that he's talking about. And they ended up getting, a week after that WhatsApp exchange, $5 million?
Less than a week. It shows that this president's compromised. That's why we're investigating Joe Biden. We believe there's a reason that his family's received millions and millions of dollars from our adversaries, including China. We believe that he's compromised, and we believe that answers some of the questions as to why he has energy policy that puts America last and China first.
Wow.
This family's taken too much money from too many of our adversaries around the world for Joe Biden not to have to repay them in the form of bad policy.
Okay, we have 6 whistleblowers.
Policies are still being changed, right? He's still paying back those bills.
Going before the House Ways and Means Committee, and you're in touch with all of this.
Absolutely.
Okay. What do you make of this other WhatsApp message? I'm sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. He's like doing, I want to say. And he goes on saying, or be personal with my father.
Out in the House Oversight Committee is that Joe Biden set up all of these deals initially. He was not only did he know about them, he was a central figure in them. There's no way China's going to send $5 million to Hunter Biden because he threatened him in a text message. It's because Joe Biden had met with him first and he had promised him things. He'd either already delivered and wanted the payment or he was going to deliver. And the whole business model that China was using the Bidens for was to be able to take Chinese money and start buying as many industries and as many businesses in America as they could because there were barriers to entry.
Hunter had no experience.
Nobody had access to regulatory people. He had ability to exercise leverage, and that's what this was all about. They needed a good representative on the United States end to clear the lane for these Chinese entities to go gobble up whatever they wanted to gobble up. And Joe Biden is apparently still making good on those orders. China placed a big order, I'm sure of it, and Hunter Biden was there to collect the request, give it to daddy to process. So this is the letter from James Comer that went over to Janet Yellen, Department of Treasury, the secretary. Signed by James Comer. You see, he's asking for more stuff. The chairman on the Committee on Oversight and Accountability, staying on top of these people, doing a great job. He says, Dear Janet, the Committee on Oversight and Accountability has reviewed government documents that allege that President Biden, while serving as vice president, solicited and received a bribe from a foreign source in return for certain actions. These allegations are consistent with the committee's ongoing investigation of the Biden family's foreign business transactions. Transactions that subpoenaed bank records that they've got their hands on have revealed allowed Biden family members and associates to profit over $10 million from foreign sources, which should be all over the headline. I mean, it should be all over the media. $10 million unaccounted for what? When he was vice president? It's nuts. In bank records. The committee is investigating the allegations it has reviewed and seeks documents from the Department of Treasury, including the SARs, the Suspicious Activity Reports from the Financial Crimes Network. They say the committee seeks to craft legislation aimed at the deficiencies about ethics laws and disclosures for VPs, presidents, and their families. The committee is concerned that foreign nationals have sought access and influence by engaging in lucrative business relationships with high-profile political figures and their immediate family members, including Biden's. The committee is investigating the national security implications of a candidate's immediate family members receiving millions of dollars from foreign nationals, from foreign companies, from foreign governments, without any oversight at all. Current financial disclosure laws and regulations do not require non-dependent family members of senior elected officials to provide any info to the public, right? So currently, there is a giant hole in disclosure stuff. You just give it to your kids. China can just give Hunter whatever he wants, and he doesn't have to disclose anything. The committee now is seeking meaningful reforms on government ethics and disclosure that will provide necessary transparency into a president's family member's income and immediate relationships. Because we intend to craft legislation, we need disclosures. And in order to prevent this, we need to know how certain transactions were structured in a way that evaded oversight. If Congress is going to patch this hole, we got to know how the hole was exploited. And we know that Hunter Biden exploited the holes. The committee is examining whether certain reporting requirements are required. They also want to strengthen the Bank Secrecy Act, Anti-Money Laundering Act. The committee wants to draft this legislation so that we can discourage family members from capitalizing from foreign adversaries and relationships with them. And so, in order to figure out how this hole was punctured by the Biden family, we're going to need all of the SARs in Treasury's custody. Obviously, we have a legitimate basis for passing legislation. We certainly don't want a president or a vice president to be able to exploit their office through their family members. So we need to know more information about these people. Information from Burisma and all corporate affiliates and subsidiaries thereof, including Brokity Investments. We want the SARs, so the suspicious activity reports that the Treasury Department has their hands on involving Burisma. Anything that is search all of your SARs, type in the word Burisma, give us whatever comes back. We also want this guy, Mykola Zlochevsky. That is allegedly the Burisma executive who said that he transferred the money. Karina Zlochevsky, probably the wife. Vladimir Pozharsky, Alexander somebody, Vuk Jeremy, and the Center for International Relationships and Sustainable Development. Anybody on any of those lists that has a SAR, suspicious activity report, Comer wants it. They say we have broad authority here under House Rule 10, and we demand this information. Thank you for your prompt attention. If you have any questions, let us know. Sincerely, your friend, James Comer, the Committee on Oversight and Accountability. And so obviously a lot of people were involved in those transactions. We saw all those various names. If those people were involved, then they must have some dirt on the Bidens, because there's two parties to a transaction. Joe and Hunter are not exploiting these relationships without a party on the other side knowing about it. So if they know about it, don't they have leverage over the Bidens? Because my goodness, what happens if they expose that deal? Do they have blackmail now on the Bidens? Obviously they do. And we know this guy is named John Ratcliffe. Very impressive gentleman. And he used to be the director of national intelligence for Donald Trump. Asked a curious question. Given what you know as the ODNI, the person who is kind of the hub of all of the intelligence agencies, they're all like spokes, and he is the director, the hub. Do you think that Joe Biden is compromised now that we know what this whistleblower has revealed? Now that we know there are actual banking records that confirm these transactions occurred?
Now, our next guest has an interesting perspective on when all the details. But this whistleblower.
Yeah, Laura, I'll just say, first of all, I watched the whistleblower today. Credible, competent, and everything that he said added up, made sense, consistent with Department of Justice and U.S. Attorney Manual policies, whereas what Merrick Garland said simply doesn't add up. And you mentioned the fact that I was U.S. Attorney. So, but two things really stood out from what the whistleblower said tonight in his interview. One, we can stop speculating that this was a sweetheart deal for Hunter Biden. He said it. He said the most serious felony charges were left on the table, and he pointed out that the special agent report that went to the prosecutors, including AUSA Leslie Wolf, laid out all of the elements for those felony charges, and she agreed that they were met. And at some point after that, that got reversed. By who and when, we don't know, but those are that, we're going to need to drill down to find out. But really the most compelling thing that he said, Laura, was when he talked about the fact that this WhatsApp message that reveals Hunter Biden shaking down Chinese officials associated with the Chinese Communist Party for millions of dollars, that WhatsApp message, he talked about the fact that they authenticated it through Apple. They obtained it through Apple. So think about that when they were seeking these search warrants that you were just talking about, relating to trying to get documents about these financial transactions involving China and Ukraine and other places and Hunter Biden, the FBI agents, along with IRS agents, were affirming that information was credible, that they had probable cause to seek that. Yet within months of that, we know that other FBI agents were going to social media platforms and saying, if you hear something about Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, the big guy, financial transactions involving China and other countries, it's likely Russian disinformation.
That was that hack and leak operation, right? The FBI was preemptively persuading, not persuading, but persuading the big tech companies to dump this story before it even happened, because they knew it was real and they knew it was probably coming. That's the level of dishonesty and manipulation and propaganda that they were involved in.
Those two things really can't be reconciled. I mean, FBI Director Wray really needs to publicly address that contradiction.
One of the things that also came out tonight,
all they do is
just
snub their noses at Congress.
To ask, how did Biden get so rich? Joe Biden, how did he get so rich? We don't know, right?
And that's why this IRS whistleblower is saying none of this makes sense. You talked about the WhatsApp message that Hunter Biden bragging that nobody's better than the Bidens at the business that the chairman wants done. and you have an IRS investigative team saying, what is that business?
Yeah.
What do? You don't have any products, so what services are you providing? What do you do better for officials in China and Ukraine and Romania? And that's why I think they're all so motivated and so distraught by the fact that this has been swept under the rug very clearly for political reasons that need to be drilled down on.
And the whistleblower is now exposing it all, but is the DOJ going to do anything? No, of course not. They're in on it. They want this plea deal done. They were the same U.S. attorneys who declined the charges. So it can't go through Congress. I'm sorry, it cannot go through the DOJ. We already know they're compromised. The FBI is not going to do anything. The only other place it can go is Congress. Fortunately, we've got Comer and others who are digging into it. Now, this was a fun clip. People are listening to this clip in a new perspective. You know, normally you listen to a president or a foreign affairs diplomat, a secretary or somebody who says, I've been to all these countries. I spent a lot of time with them and I've got a lot of experience as a result. When you combine Joe Biden's trip down memory lane with Xi Jinping with the fact that he's also getting $100,000 paychecks through his son, it comes with a different feel, a little bit of a new vibe to it.
I've long said I was on the Tibetan Plateau with Xi Jinping.
Yeah.
I traveled 17,000 miles with him. I've spoken with him more than any other head of state.
Yeah,
because it started when I was vice president, and President Hu was the president, and he was the vice president. We knew he was going to be successful.
Yeah.
It was inappropriate for Barack to spend that time with him, but I spent a lot of time with him.
We know.
I met alone with him, just he and I, and a simultaneous interpreter 68 times, 68 hours, 68 times, more than 68 hours. By the way, I turned in all my notes.
Yeah. Yeah, we had such a good relationship. I gave him my Venmo account, and it's just been love ever since. So very, interesting new perspective now that we know that they're getting paychecks from the CEFC, Chinese-backed energy companies. And the Treasury will respond. Will they deliver the SARs? Time will tell, but we'll continue to cover. Thank you for subscribing, my friends, and we'll see you on the next one.